From the multiverse saga to some very questionable decisions, the MCU Phase 4 was full of moments that changed the course of the franchise forever, and here are some of the very best. Starting with an exciting moment from WandaVision. WandaVision was a massive step for the MCU, not only because it was Marvel's first Disney Plus show, but because the studio experimented with the style and tone of the show. Honestly, when you build a massive franchise like Marvel, the room for experimentation decreases, and this show gave them the opportunity to do just that. However, that's not even the best part about the show. WandaVision teased characters from other Marvel franchises, a trend that was followed throughout Phase 4, and that's Evan Peters, aka Quicksilver. And yes, I know Quicksilver was first introduced in the MCU in Avengers Age of Ultron, but if you remember that, you must remember that he died in that movie, even though WandaVision showed that Evan Peters' character was just a regular person named Ralph Bonner. It was the first time that a Marvel came back from the dead. Well, the second time, if you're counting Endgame. Are you counting Endgame? Coming back. This could also mean a certain someone we love, 3000, could come back. One can only hope. Well, moving away from old faces, this next moment from Falcon and the Winter Soldier might be the beacon for the bright future. I'm talking about the introduction of the potential legacy heroes. Following WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the second MCU Disney Plus show, and it offered a more grounded and realistic interpretation of the MCU. The show told the story of Sam Wilson as he tries to fit in the shoes of legendary Steve Rogers as Captain America. Now, you can pretty much guess the subtext here is passing on the torch, so it makes sense that MCU legacies were introduced here, as Wilson himself was the first canonical legacy hero in the franchise when he first showed up in the famous costume and shield. But the legacies I'm most interested in are Kate Bishop, Jane Foster, Shuri, and maybe even T'Challa's son, Toussaint. All of them could very well become legacy heroes in future Phase 5 or Phase 6 movies, paving the way for a new generation of Avengers. Speaking of new, this next moment from the same show also gave us a very different superhero team. Though not as heroic as the Avengers, we might be getting a new squad. Not everything is an Avengers-level threat, so I can see the use of this new team. In the 5th episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, titled Truth, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, recruited John Walker and gave him the pseudonym US Agent. And in the post-credits sequence of Black Widow, she invited Yelena Belova to join the squad. And if you're a fan of the comics, I'm sure you figured out where this is going. And yes, it's the Thunderbolts. God, yes, finally. But the team isn't complete yet. According to the confirmed roster, she still has to recruit Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, and Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp, as well as Red Guardian and Taskmaster from Black Widow. But boy, am I excited for the Thunderbolts. All of these moments can lead up to some great storylines in the near future, but this next one was probably what kicked off the multiverse saga, and it comes from none other than Loki. The groundwork for the multiverse saga was built early on in Phase 4. However, it wasn't until Loki that things really started moving between dimensions, but wait, that's not all. In addition to introducing the ideas of parallel universes, multiverse variants, and the sacred timeline, Loki also introduced and killed He Who Remains and teased a previous multiversal war, paving the way for the arrival of the MCU's new overarching antagonist, Jonathan Majors' Kang the Conqueror. The final episode of Loki saw the collapse of the sacred timeline and Sylvie's murder of He Who Remains. This set in motion a chain of events that will continue to affect the franchise through Avengers Secret Wars at the very least. Speaking of introducing new characters at the end, MCU had a habit of introducing vital characters in the post-credit scenes. Phase 4 took that habit to a whole new level. Almost every movie or show introduced a new character that can have a massive impact on the franchise, or even have their franchises moving forward. The two post-credit scenes of Eternals introduce us to Harry Styles' character Eros and Mahershala Ali's Blade. Continuing this trend, Spider-Man No Way Home brought Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom into the MCU, who left the symbiote in the main MCU, making way for the symbiote Spider-Man. Similarly, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness introduced Charlize Theron's Clea. Then you had Thor: Love and Thunder introducing introducing Brett Goldstein's Hercules, and who can forget the emotional post-credit scene of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, where Divine Love Konadu's son was introduced as Toussaint. It's safe to say that MCU has a lot of storylines waiting to happen with all these characters, but one thing that's been missing from the MCU for way too long was finally introduced in Ms. Marvel. Yes, I'm talking about the X gene. This one has been a long time coming. Even though Wanda and Quicksilver were already in the MCU, they were never considered mutants. And even though the X-Men probably won't show up in the MCU anytime soon, Phase 4 has set up the groundwork for future mutant stories. In Ms. Marvel, the word mutation was used for the first time in the MCU, and the shocking idea that Kamala Khan is an MCU mutant instead of an Inhuman was brought up. So after that, Namor called himself a mutant in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. With these two showing up one after the other, it's safe to assume that more mutants will also come sooner or later. So, will our red suit-wearing immortal friend and his clawed yellow suit-wearing friend make their way into the MCU? They'll be jumping into different dimensions in the upcoming movie, so coming back, the fact that WandaVision showed that the Scarlet Witch already knew how to use chaos magic when she was a child suggests that Wanda and Pietro Maximoff have been mutants all along. Who saw this one coming? Not me. Speaking of our fourth wall-breaking friend, MCU already has a character who can also do just that, and she's none other than the She-Hulk. Jennifer Walters, played by Tatiana Maslany, did something that no other MCU character had done before. She broke the fourth wall harder than Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. Not only did she talk to the audience like Deadpool, but she also left her own show and went to Marvel Studios headquarters and talked to the show's writers and directors discussing her show's finale. Now, that's some hardcore fourth wall breaking. Even though this break in the fourth wall was just for laughs, it could be a subtle hint to a higher power than eternity and He Who Remains, and possible new storylines. Speaking of new storylines, Phase 4 brought something pretty special to Disney+. Yes, the special presentations. These are short, self-contained stories that are only available on Disney+. The two special presentations that have come out so far, Werewolf by Night and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Werewolf by Night was about the Halloween holiday, while the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special was about Christmas. But that's not the important part. Special presentations take place in the MCU, meaning any character who's introduced in these shorts can and will probably show up in future movies and TV shows. So if you are thinking they are just out there, remember, it's Marvel. Nothing is just out there. And those were the moments that changed the course of MCU.